many things which are disturbing India. If you recall, once your statement had come in 1971, when then Vice President of America visited Zulfikar Bhutto and threatened him with the consequences if he does not agree to certain things, and you are standing near the door at that time, and your comments came, and your father said, well, for a Vice President of America, United States of America, to say such things to the President of a nation does not really mean in the nice order. You see, now I'm asking you the basic questions. How does America influence the politics which is evolving in Pakistan? And second, even when the democracy has been tried in India, this Pakistan 3 times or 4 times, it has always been under the shadow of military regime or the welfare organizations which were supported by the military. Like all fertilizer industries and every industries are with the welfare organizations which are controlled by military in such. Even in your regime, you felt that threat and that shadow of overpowering by the military in your democracy. Do you feel this, that Kashmir is only an issue put by military?
I think let's stick to one question at a time. You're mixing up lots of questions. Let's deal with America.
I'm asking with the third question, the basic question.
One
the
question.
Kashmir issue, basically, you see, it's a shadow by the military regime to see this, that the democracy does not come in Pakistan. Thank you.
Well, I'm aware that there are analysts who believe that military regimes create the pretext for their own intervention. And so keeping the Taliban threat alive or keeping the Al-Qaeda threat alive does help sustain a military regime in Pakistan. Whenever there's pressure, someone by coincidence or by planning is caught and handed over. But ultimately we feel that it's very dangerous to allow such forces to remain alive that can burn down the whole nation. So we oppose military rule. As far as the reference to America is concerned, America has its own foreign policy. And in the 70s, we had our differences with Washington. Our government had differences with Washington on the nuclear reprocessing plant that Pakistan was purchasing from France. But we also get a lot of aid from the United States. Right now, Pakistan is the 5th largest recipient of US military and economic assistance. So if Pakistan is an important ally of the US is also an important supporter of Pakistan with regard to its economic and its defense needs. Now you're talking to the third question I think you asked me about was control of the military. You know, I was Prime Minister of Pakistan, and the control of the military, at the time, the Constitution gave the control of the military to the President of Pakistan. So I was not technically in charge of the military, and I could not reform them. Now I look back at other successive regimes, and I see that under Mr. Nawaz Sharif, India and Pakistan nearly went to war over Kargil. And I see that under General Musharraf, a militant attack on the Indian Parliament nearly brought our 2 countries to war. And I see that in the tribal areas of Pakistan, I was able to root out the militants and the narco barons and restore peace and security. I see that in Karachi, I was able to withdraw the army and restore peace and order. So I think that given the comparison, I feel that I was better able to deal with our military security apparatus than my successors have been able to deal with it. General Musharraf himself says that he is committed to a policy of eliminating terrorism, but at the same time he admits that the Taliban have regrouped in the tribal areas of Pakistan. So I think that the problem that we face in Pakistan is more deeply entrenched than it appears when a sitting army chief feels that despite his policy, the Taliban have regrouped in the tribal areas. But during my tenure, in extending the writ of the government, well, my government extended its writ. In Karachi, we rooted out the militants, And in the tribal areas of Pakistan, we rooted out the militants, we took them on, and we made sure there was no Kargil-like event. So while we may not have been able to stop the military from destabilizing democracy, we were certainly able to take them on in terms of managing our internal and our external relations. In our presence, many events could not take place by the militants. I'm not just talking about India and the attack on the Indian Parliament of Bombay, but if we look at the 2 attacks on the World Trade Centers, both those attacks took place when I was not Prime Minister of Pakistan. And when we look at the attacks on the coal ship or other attacks, none of those took place when I was Prime Minister of Pakistan. And I believe the difference was this, that my party had a popular base. We had people at grassroots levels who supported us, who are our eyes and our ears, and that during our tenure in office, the militants were on the run. But I'm afraid since 1996, when our government was dismissed, they have regrouped. And it pains me as a Pakistani to see that every time some terrorist is caught, the international media points out a link to Islamabad. So when John Reed, the shoe bomber, is caught, somehow or the other telephone call is tracked to Islamabad. And when Shafqat Tanveer, the tube bomber, is caught, somehow or the other, a visit to Pakistan has taken place shortly beforehand. When Khalid Sheikh, the CEO of Al-Qaeda, is caught, he's caught in Rawalpindi. So it pains me as a Pakistani to see this. I don't like to see my country's name associated with terrorism. And I don't think that our present regime has been able to disassociate my country's name from terrorism. And I believe that a popular democratic government can disassociate Pakistan's name from terrorism and militancy, and I want to try and do that.
Mr. Parthasarthi wanted to ask a question. He's your neighbor, I believe.
Yes, my neighbor in Karachi.
I don't know. He told me he was your neighbor.
Yes,
I don't know
in
why.
Karachi, right? Yes, good to see you again. It's very difficult to see you in this darkness. I hope I can see you more clearly after the talk.
I look forward to that, ma'am. One question, there are 2 interrelated questions, ma'am, and so it's one. One is in your regard to your own statements, and perhaps what you said to me, which I've published, that the dangers arise to Pakistan from a military mullah madrasa complex. You said that recently to the Washington Post, the links between the military and the radical extremist establishment. The People's Party and your father never stood for extremism. Even at the Lahore summit, your father spoke against it. My question to you, ma'am, is by every understanding, the last elections were won with 26% of the radical Islam vote for the radical Islamic parties coming in but less than fair methods. That in a free elections, perhaps mainstream parties like yours would sweep the polls. But your own experience, when you took over as Prime Minister in '89, I saw you with Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, you were tied down by the president and an army chief who did not want to change. What makes you think that the next election is going to make the army change its ways? Is the army not too entrenched to move away from its Islamist ways? And one hopes, madam, if you don't mind my saying, that the electoral compulsions will not be what they were for you earlier when there was an alliance with the Jamaat Ulema-e-Islam in the frontier province, because everybody is looking for a moderate political party to rule the NWFP. My first question is that. And the second question, ma'am, you know, we always stood by the agreement with your late father signed in 1972, which was the Simla agreement. I think it is, as you rightly said, the very basis of everything. As we move ahead, and when Mr. Nawaz Sharif, you would recall, wanted to disown that, General Musharraf wants to later on to disown everything. We hope that as you encourage the engagement that our Prime Minister is having with General Musharraf, we will have a continuity. Because I agree with you that I think soft borders and there's no need for the sort of controls we have. A European model will perhaps make us much closer neighbors. Thank you.
Well, we do support the soft borders. We see ourselves as actually the architects of the proposal for better relations with India from the time of Mrs. Gandhi at Simla and taking up at the time of Rajiv Gandhi. And it certainly pleased us very much when Mr. Nawaz Sharif decided to continue it through the bus diplomacy, and subsequently General Musharraf, after some hiccups, has come on board. I know many ideas are being presently discussed, and I hope that they do succeed. But as I say, that the process remains very fragile, because unless militant cells are dismantled, any militant can at any time inflict an act of terror. For example, if the Indian Parliament had blown up, it could have brought both our countries to war, not just eyeball to eyeball. So I think the important thing is to work for soft borders, but also to work for safe borders. And that safety comes from undermining militancy and terrorism. Now, the internal dynamics of Pakistan, yes, in 1988, when I first became Prime Minister of Pakistan, the political alignments were such that the military tried to hold on to power through President Ghulam Ishaq Khan, and they also initially backed Mr. Nawaz Sharif. But now we have a two-party system in Pakistan, with Mr. Nawaz Sharif having fallen out with the military. And secondly, the military regimes used to also rely on the judiciary. And as you can see from the recent judicial crisis, there's been an erosion in the relations between the military-judicial alliance. And so I feel that in 2007, we are much better placed than we were in 1988 to take our military back to the barracks, to reform our security apparatus, and to bring Pakistan under parliamentary sovereignty and control. And I hope that my dreams for Pakistan are fulfilled. People of Pakistan never gave up, despite the coups by the military leaders, despite the destabilization programs. The people of Pakistan never gave up. Just last month, 6 workers of my party were killed in an area called Attak. My sister-in-law faced an assassination attempt. The information secretary of our party was hit on the neck and nearly paralyzed. But we haven't given up, because we feel that if a struggle is right, it's worth giving sacrifices for. And we see 2007 as a real opportunity, working with Mr. Nawaz Sharif, working with Poonam and ANP and other moderate groups in Pakistan to get a democratic Pakistan. And I hope that you will also wish us well in this quest.
Many of us in India look at the Pakistan Army's commitment to the peace process as a short-term tactical ploy rather than a long-term strategic change of heart, simply because they can't afford to fight on 3 fronts: a proxy war with India, internal instability, and on the Afghan border. Could we have your views on this? Also, are the people of Pakistan in favor of the peace process? In India, we make a distinction between the Pakistan Army and the Pakistani people and the nation. Thank you.
I know that there are many voices that say that this is a tactical move by the military regime to get India off its back as the Afghan border hots up and as election year approaches, because India has a very strong international lobby. And I've been told by many people that I should raise my voice against the present process and expose it. But as I said in my speech, I would like my policies to be driven by hope and not fear. And therefore, I'm giving the military regime the benefit of doubt in the hope that they are in true essence coming on board for better relations with India, irrespective of their motives. I know that a future government in Pakistan will be strengthened by the fact that the military regime signed on, whether tactically or strategically, onto the peace process with India. So we support their efforts in this regard. Now in Pakistan, there is a real consensus, because except for the religious parties, except for some of the religious parties, I won't even say all the religious parties, except for some of the religious parties, everyone supports opening with India. Mr. Nawaz Sharif's party supports it, the Pakistan People's Party supports it. In the frontier, we have the ANP, they support it. The MQM supports it, the Poonam supports it. Sorry for some of you who've never heard of these names, but all these parties support the peace process. The only opposition comes from a faction of the MMA. The MMA, which is, I know many people think it's Military Mullah Alliance, but it calls itself the Muttahida something. The MMA has two factions in it, one which is the JUI and one which is the Jamaat-e-Islami. The Jamaat-e-Islami opposes the peace process with India, and the Jamaat-e-Islami is backed by some of the former and retired generals of Pakistan. But the Jamiat-e-Ulema-e-Islam, which is headed by Maulana Fazlur Rahman, backs the peace process with India. In fact, the JUI did not want a partition. They wanted India to remain unpartitioned, and following partition, they promoted peaceful relations with India. So we've got 90% of the stakeholders in Pakistan who all want normalization, not just normalization of relations, but close relations with India. And that's a sea change. It's a sea change from the time in 1988 when I would say that perhaps the Pakistan People's Party and some of the regional parties were the only ones who wanted the peace process to go through. And following my meetings with Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, we were accused of being the agents of the Indians and the Zionists and undermining Pakistan's territorial integrity. And I remember even in 2001 when I came to India for a conference, I was castigated by the columnists and by the political commentators in Pakistan, and now it's changed totally. It's a different situation. People want the markets to open, they want the trade to open, the travel to open, our business people are excited about it, people in the arts and the sporting world are excited about it, and I think we've got a real momentum going, and that's why I've proposed that the leaders of India and Pakistan should meet symbolically on our Independence Day and together pledge their commitment to good relations between our two countries, and that symbolism will take this momentum forward.
Fantastic.
Ma'am, I want to ask you, I myself live out of the country very often, and when I come back to India, I see the changes that have happened so quickly, even in months. You have been in exile for several years. How do you keep a finger on the pulse of Pakistan? How do you really know what's going on there?
Well, such a good question that you ask me, because I say that to myself too. I say 8 years is a long time, and so much must have changed, and a whole new generation must have come forward. People who were children have grown into adults, and in both our countries we have large populations that are underage. But you know, even though I'm physically outside the country, I find that in actual fact I'm inside the country. My day begins, I live in Dubai, which is 1 hour behind Pakistan, and my day is synchronized with Pakistan and the events in Pakistan and what is happening in Pakistan. So I keep in touch by telephone and internet, by meetings, small meetings with people in London and through the media. But tell you the truth, I myself am looking forward to returning, because even though I've received so much information, there's a whole new world out there. So I hope that I've been properly briefed, and I hope my hands are on the pulse of the people. I know I get a lot of support wherever I go. I know that the IRI, it's an institute affiliated with the Republican Party, did a Gallup poll, and they found that the Pakistan People's Party and Mr. Nawaz Sharif's party together far outstrip the rest as far as the people are concerned. So we must be doing something right, but I won't know till I go there. And so I look forward to that day very keenly.
I said, Madam Prime Minister, I hope you will be again.
Thank you, General Malik.
I must say that your speech was very impressive, and I'm sure it's going to excite a lot of people, both in India and Pakistan. And we wish you all the best. I was just wondering, just sending an army chief president back to barracks is not going to end up the problem that you have with the Pakistan army. You need to do much more than that to be able to keep them in the barracks. So I was just wondering, what is your strategy, long-term strategy, to ensure that they remain in the barracks and that they don't come out?
Are you offering a consultancy, General Malik? Outsourcing.
General Malik, I missed something here. I don't know why everybody's laughing on this very serious issue. Because we do need to keep the military in the barracks, and I agree with you. Just taking the present military regime out of the political equation with our success, which I look forward to, it doesn't necessarily mean that the domination of the military security apparatus will come to an end by just that move. So I think that the question that you have put to me is a very important one. My party has been studying what has been done in India. We've been studying what has been done in other countries. And we have called for parliamentary scrutiny of our military's budget. And we also intend to look at certain reforms so that the military and security apparatus come under the parliament and come under a form of scrutiny, which has not happened, especially since 1977. So it's a very big challenge for us. I used to think winning an election means democracy is restored. And I've learned painfully that's not so. And I know winning an election doesn't mean that the military is going to stay in the barracks. I know that it's going to take substantive reforms to bring that about. And I hope that the new generation of officers in our armed forces will be looking at the 21st century in a new light and will also appreciate that it's not military domination of a country, but economic emancipation and economic growth that brings the real dividends. It's going to be a challenge, but one that I hope we can successfully face.
My question is that do you believe that two nations theory has failed? And if so, what lessons we can learn? Thank you.
There are some people who feel that after the creation of Bangladesh, the two-nation theory failed. But I'm not one of those. I think that people of Pakistan and India both have a new generation, a post-partition generation, and that our people are looking towards building relations on the pattern of Europe, where there are independent nations, but they come together in a common market, and they come together with the common goals. So that's the lesson for my generation. I can't speak for future generations, but I think that we need to go beyond the debate on the two-nation theory and embark on a new journey of creating a South Asian economic zone. I believe in economic blocs, and I believe that the safety and security of all the people of South Asia really comes in being unified so that nobody can exploit tensions between our two countries. I see around us so much death and so much destruction and so much bloodshed. I've seen Afghanistan as a peaceful nation, and I've seen what happened, and all of us have seen, and it's not just myself. We've seen what happened in Iran, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and we sometimes take peace for granted. I don't think we should take peace for granted. I think we should build the institutions that ensure that we can banish war and conflict from South Asia forever.
We've seen a significant progress between West Germany and East Germany coming together many, many years ago. Do you believe that India and Pakistan being one nation would be better for the two nations together as we move forward?
I know that there are many people in Pakistan who used to hope after Bangladesh went its way that East Pakistan would once again come back to West Pakistan. And I know that similarly, since Pakistan was born out of what was then undivided India, there are many people in India who think that maybe Pakistan should come back. But for the new generation of Pakistanis, we accept our identity. We accept Pakistan as an independent nation state. And when we think of India as our brother, as our friend, a country which shares with us so much of our history and our culture, and we want a spirit of cooperation. At least that's what I feel my generation wants for this at this time.
Okay, I can hear stomachs growling, so I'm going to
But
now...
not just India and Pakistan. I know there are many people who feel very much nostalgic, even about the division of East and West Punjab. So the feelings are often there. But I think the large number of people that I meet, they are born in an environment, they're comfortable with that environment, they have an identity from that environment, and they're looking more to the future than the past.
I have a very simple question. Maybe this should have been the last one. We wish you well for the coming election. But what the question is, would you promise us that if you are the Prime Minister, you'll be back here for the India Today Conclave 2008?
You're asking
Good, I
me
should have asked you that.
How can I refuse an offer made in such a spirit and on such an occasion? I hope that I can come back to the India Today Conclave as the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Thank you for your good wishes.
Okay, you better come up with a better question than that now. Last one.
I thought that was a great question, the last one.
My question relates to, do you have a modified message for youth of India? And the context in which I'm asking this question, India is the youngest country in the world, and the average age below 30 years. Most of these young Indians, they don't even remember the recent history. For example, assassination of Mrs. Gandhi. Most of these youngsters may not even remember exact details of that. Now, forget what happened in partition, what happened in '62. For the entire baggage of the history is unknown and not remembered by most of these young Indians. So do you have a very modified message for this youth of India?
My message to the youth of India is that the mind knows no boundaries, opportunities know no boundaries, and your generation must make a better job of dealing with South Asia than those before you have done.
Yeah.
Madam, you have energized with your words everybody here. And a lot of gathering here has roots from Lahore. And we in India, our President of India has shown a vision called 2020. So we, whether it's industry, economics, trade, environment, whatever, we are all focusing towards 2020. Could I say that we add a new vision to 2020? I tell my friend, let's hop into a car and drive to Lahore for a vacation. Do you think, can this ever become a reality?
I'd very much like that to be a reality. I remember, but before I come to that reality, I just want to say that your Prime Minister comes from Pakistan, was born in what is now Pakistan, and General Musharraf was born in New Delhi. And sometimes people in Pakistan joke and say, can we exchange?
I think on that note...
I had to apply for a visa. I'm sorry to go back to the more mundane. But when I was meeting with Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi and other leaders of SAARC, I proposed to them that we should make visa-free travel for certain groups of people like parliamentarians and judges. And I said we should go on expanding this to organized groups like the Federal Chamber of Commerce or business associations or press associations or Supreme Court bar associations and so on. And then I had to apply for a visa to come here, and I got a single entry visa, not even a multiple entry visa. And I said, look at this. I was once dreaming of all of us being able to hop into a car and go to each other's countries, and now we have to get visas. So I want to say I'm very much on your side.